Hello, everybody. And move this here, like here. Um, Hope everybody's all right. I'm gonna just do a little change here. Okay. How is everyone? I'm just gonna do. There we go. Like this better. And everything seems to be okay. So welcome aboard, everyone. This is the Saturday live show where we talk about radio and more radio and radio forever. Nice to have everybody here. So this is, of course, the Shortwave live show. We are here every Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time. We talk about radio, amateur radio. We tune the bands. Yisu's right there, ready to be tuned. And we just gonna have fun and just go around. I got the SDR running right here on the laptop. So lots of stuff to play with. It's nice to have everybody around, and it's always nice to do this show. It was really a lot of fun on Wednesday to have the live show for the BBC Midwinter. It was really a lot of fun to listen together to this BBC Midwinter, and it was fun also to have frequencies that were quite easy to actually receive. Also, signal was not bad at all here, and for a lot of us too. Not everybody, but at least there's was a lot of fun to do that on what was it? Wednesday, and of course, it's always cool to be here to do a live show. So my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America, and it is a lot of fun to do this every week on Saturday at 20 UTC. We have a chat room if you want to be in. All you need is a Google account. And you can join in the chat, say hello to everybody. And, it's a great bunch of people. Really a lot of fun to have all of you here. And when all of this is over, we have a Facebook group, more than 3,000 members. And, of course, that's where it continues, where all of that continues after we share what we're listening to. I often share things that I'm actually receiving and having a lot of fun with the radio in general. So today we'll focus on a few things. The amateur radio field day going on right now. It started at 18 hours Universal Time today. Goes on until tomorrow. It is one of the biggest events for amateur radio, and it's really shows how amateur radio operators from around the world can really be at the first line of help when emergency happens. It's really a amateur radio contest to show the skills of amateur radio operators. So we'll say hello to everybody. So it's nice to have all of you here once again. Here in Quebec, it's a Quebec holiday. We have Saint Jean Baptiste, as we call it, which is the province's holiday. And of course, next week will be on Canada Day. So next week we'll actually have the Canada Day contest. We'll be able to chase Canada Day stations or the RAC stations particularly. It will be interesting to kind of see where they are on the bands and see if we can actually get maybe some of the exotic ones from Nunavut and from Yukon. That'd be kind of cool to see that. So 2 holidays in a row here in Quebec. So it's nice to have everybody here. And, Bowman's, nice to have you here. Kamikaze 1976, nice to have you on board from Hot West Michigan. Here it's raining and slight rain and kind of muggy. Not super hot. It's maybe 80 Fahrenheit, so like 26 Celsius, something like that. But it's really muggy. Davis Radio Room from Central Georgia. Nice to have you on board. We have Richard Wagner. Nice to have you here from Northeast Illinois. And comparing the two versions of the ATS 25. Cool. Bobby Burgess, Master Players Radio and Television Plus Gaming. Nice to have you here. WA5107 is WL in Morgan City, Louisiana. Tripper 4748. Nice to have you here from Thunder Bay, Ontario. RJ88 Dakota, nice to have you here from Winsville, Missouri. WA0113 is WL, nice to have you on board. Dwayne from Northeast Tennessee. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX from Yonkers, New York. We have Chuck from South Texas. Nice to have you here in 5KVO. J Projects from San Diego. Andy New from Bristol in the UK, M7CUN. We have Frank, nice to have you on board. We have DX Swinger, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. Greg Scherer, nice to have you here. And says Gregory the Catman saying hello from Southeast Illinois. We have Nick Amendo from Romania. Nice to have you here. Brad Shaver, nice to have you here. What do we have? The Shortwave Archive. Hello there. We have Glenn Danzler. Nice to have you on board. Jean Arash, salut. Nice to have you here. Robert Varner, nice to have you on board. KC2TEL in New Jersey. We have Stan, nice to have you on board from Fayetteville, Arkansas. And is with his fiance here in the hospital. So we live in Harrison, Arkansas. I don't have my radio with my current just cell phones. Well, at least a little something to keep your mind off of hospital. Better than nothing. And hopefully you can... time will pass a little faster than just laying there in the hospital. Vianney Arsenault, bonjour, bienvenue. Bonne fête, joyeux anniversaire. So that it's your birthday. Happy birthday. Artist Alley Crafter's Kitchen. Et bonne Saint-Jean. Artist Alley Crafter's Kitchen, nice to have you here from Massachusetts. We have Sheila, nice to have you here from Belleville, Ontario. Stuck in heavy downpour. Sending it my way. Yeah, we could have some thunderstorms. I think it's later today. 45 unit, nice to have you here. Terrence, nice to have you on board from New Jersey, KD2ANN. Darren Rogers, nice to have you here from Long Island, New York, KB2AHS. Mr. T, nice to have you on board. Frequencies for the situation in Russia. There's a lot of stuff that is in the utility, and there's even some radio wars going on in the bottom part of the 40-meter amateur band, like around 7050, 7055. But to follow the coverage, I think the best source is the BBC World Service. They have several times, depending on where you live, that actually they do have a decent signal. So I would check the schedules for that. What else do we have? Let's see here. We have just trying to get. I got completely at the bottom, so I'm missing out on some of the stuff. Here we go. Stan got a Galaxy DX 959 CB in his vehicle and went to Oklahoma last weekend. Talked to folks on sideband in North and South Carolina, Georgia. Pretty cool. Conditions have been surprising with E-Skip. This week, Sportic E-Skip was happening a little more. I had quite a few contacts on 6 meters from many parts of the United States. Jim's Radio Check, nice to have you on board. We have Terrence says, when all else fails, amateur radio is there. Definitely. And there's so many occasions where it actually was showing. Michael, nice to have you on board from Caldwell, New Jersey. Paul Thomas, nice to have you here from Alabama. Robert Varner likes working Canadian stations. Trustin, nice to have you here from Newfoundland. We have Keegan DXer. Nice to have you here from Arkansas. We have Vianney via du VMA. Nice to have you here, via du VMA. And nice to have you on board. Hey, we're getting older, but we still got the radios, Vianney. That's all that counts. Mickey Delmage, nice to have you on board. Sherwood Park, Alberta. Thank you so much, Mickey. Penny C, nice to have you on board. Thank you very much. Stan says, I've heard Australia and Canada on sideband on CB radio. Pretty cool. When propagation is there, it's just amazing what you can hear, honestly. It's really, really, really cool. So this is a lot of fun. You know what? We're already at the bottom of the list right now. If I've not missed anybody, trying to get to see here if I've missed anyone, but I think I didn't. Brad Shaver, did I say hi? From North Illinois, did I miss out on anyone? I don't think so. If I missed out on you and didn't say hi, well, just say hi again. I'll be happy to say hello. Francis Moore, nice to have you on board from Birmingham, UK. Keegan DXer had some FM ESCAP from North Carolina, Virginia, Wisconsin, Manitoba, Minnesota, North Dakota on the 22nd. Cool. Pretty cool. So what we're going to do, I'm going to plug the cable I had the other day. I'm going to put my headphones on. Let's check out a little bit of the 20-meter band. How about that for the field day, and then talk about it a little bit. So here we go. Hello there from Kaliningrad, Russia. ATV and Ham, KD9 WNV. Nice to have you on board in the ARL Field Day in USA, in Canada also. Church Beck, nice to have you here from Arizona. So let's just put the cable, if I can find it. Kind of moved it away because I didn't want to have interference from risk anything from. And let's do a little scan of 20 meters, just out of curiosity. So get this here. Put the volume. There we go. That, by the way, is Spain on 17855. Pretty good signal. Greg, nice to have you on board. Loves my vintage Westinghouse. Pretty cool. Jet Crafter, nice to have you here from Southern Maine. Just picked up a scanner, 2005. Pretty cool. It picks up long wave, medium wave, short wave. No SSB, but amazing for a scanner. Wow, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So that's just like 20 meters. And let's turn around, see what's up there for field day. That is not field day, but that is that guy in Spain, Lou. 14265, the guy from Spain. Hey, Ricky, nice to have you here from Alberta. Hope you are well. Matt Taylor, nice to have you on board. Yeah, let's try him. 2 seconds. Victor Echo 2, Zulu, Zulu, India. I'll just do a little something here because I noticed something go off. Just need to tune. Sheila, it's your fault. We now have heavy rain here, and it's all your fault. You told me that you were sending the rain here. Well, now it's here. I'm gonna try to answer him back. Lou, I already had him. Victor Echo 2, Zulu, Zulu, India. That doesn't seem to have good receive. Oh, he's got those Zulu Lima. He's got a New Zealand there. Unless he's mistaking my Victor Echo. Yeah, he's booming in all the time. That guy, every time I hear him, he's booming all the time. So let me just try here. Anybody else? RY491, nice to have you here. Thomas in the UK. We have Jim's Radio Checks and guys coming in. Good under Grid Executive. ATV and Ham says it needs rain in Wisconsin. Sheila says, sorry. It's your fault. Autism Radio's more channel. Nice to have you here. Jose G, nice to have you here from Chicago. What else do we have? Craig, W9C to FW. Nice to have you on board. What else do we have? ZX, nice to have you here from Poland. Nice to have you on board. There's tons of stations calling him back, but he doesn't seem to hear much. I think he's not in a, he must be having a lot of noise or something, because every time that he called, I heard other stations calling him back, and he continues saying CQ. So he must have a bad receive at his end. Anyways. Yep, there's some activity. There'll be more activity as time goes on today, but there's some activity of field day 236. Autism radios and more. What FM radio station can I find your radio show on? It's CKUT. CKUT 90.3 FM, and it's www.ckut.ca for the website. So, yep, clock is in UTC time. The clock here is in UTC time. We all live in UTC on amateur radio and shortwave. Dennis Rogers, I'm listening to this also. AB1KW online QSDR. What else do we have? MDK2, Matt, nice to have you on board from Denver, Colorado. Glenn Zegman from Ohio, nice to have you on board. Francis Moore, is it okay to connect two sets to a 13.8 volt switching power supply? Well, as long as you don't go over the rating of the amps of the power supply, yeah. It's just a question of if when you plug devices on power supplies, you just have to, make sure that the total of what's there doesn't reach too close to the limit. And remember, when a power supply rating is, for example, if you have a 30 amp rated supply, technically most of the time it's good for a solid 20 amps continuous. But between 20 and 30, it will accept it, but it's meant to be short. It's not meant to be, hours at a time. So often you'll go up to 20 amps, and usually in the detailed ratings, it will tell you. So a 30 amp supply will tell you, well, up to 22 amps, it's fine. After that, it's, you can go up to 30, but it's meant to be for short periods of time, which is often what we do in amateur radio. So if you have a 30 amp supply, you're pumping up 100 watts, and say it takes 24 amps. Well, it's going to do it. It's just that it's not meant to be 24 amps continuous. It's really, we have peaks of 24, 25, that'll be fine. So if you put more than one device on the power supply, what's going to happen is you got to take into consideration is if they are both running at the same time, or if you have more than two things plugged in, when I use my radios, if I use transceivers, will it be within the amp rating of the supply? I decided to change my 30 for a 50 for that reason, because I wanted to have the capability of plugging in more than one radio on it. And I was thinking that, well, if I'm running the Kenwood R5000, the ICOM ACRD 500, and the Yaesu transceiver, for example, that if I ever key up the transceiver, that the total rating will never be too close or over the amp rating of the power supply. The other thing about power supply, somebody asked the other day, I was showing this, and don't take a look at the brand name per se, because it is, look at what it looks like. Because here it's a Tech Power. You see that the power supply's name is Tech Power. That doesn't matter. I've seen this in dozens of different names. Look at what it looks like. They all look exactly like this. So whatever the name is here, If you have the same look here, exactly, and often the number will be something close to the same thing here. You have the exact same supply. I got somebody that purchased two different names, not even the same name as I, and we compared, and they're exactly the same. It seems that they all come out of the same manufacturing plant. It's just they're branded differently. So it's really the looks that's important. So this one is a 30 amp power supply, which means continuous will give at least 20 amps solid. It goes easily up to 30 amp without any problems. This is $100-ish. It's not expensive. And you know what? This is a darn good solid supply. I've seen a lot of hams because, there's all sorts of thinking out there, and a lot of hams are like, well, those cheap switching power supplies, keep away from them. Yes, there are some bad ones, definitely. When I purchased this, the idea behind it for me was to test it out, see what it is like. Because I had a pyramid switching power, which I don't know if I have it close, but don't see it real close. That was a piece of crap. The pyramid PV, what is it? PSV or PVC or what else? PSC something. 30, which is a 30 amp switching power supply. Super noisy, creates buzzes everywhere. What made me buy this one is because it came with the noise offset here. So I thought if it's noisy, at least I can move the noise away from what I'm doing. So that was the first thing. But you know what? Surprise, surprise. I put the Pyramid 30 amp on this radio. You'll see spikes every 50, 100 kilohertz on the display, and it's crazy bad. I remember getting annoyed because I would do some DX stations on SSB voice, and from time to time the DX station would be exactly on a buzz from the power supply. It drove me completely nuts. So I thought, okay, I got a nice transceiver. No way I'm going to keep a radio, a power supply that's so noisy and so bad. So I had different options. Of course, there's linear power supplies, which are the quietest that you can get, of course. The problem with linear power supplies here in Canada, particularly, the cheapest one, brand new, is over $500. So I thought, nah, there's no way I'm going to buy $500 power supply. It's too expensive. And they are very heavy. So there must be a compromise. There must be something out there that, you know, cheaper, but still good. And, you got to keep in mind that when I bought this, the first thing that comes in mind is that it's going to plug in a $2,000 radio. You don't want to mess up your radio because, some power supplies might not be up to par with that, being good enough. I saw 2 or 3 videos of people checking this power supply for ripple current, for all sorts of, how it can handle load and still deliver. Everybody was totally amazed at how this is really, really good supply. Plus, in one video, the amateur radio guy opens it up, checks the circuit board. It has tons of protections. It is really, really a solid, well-made power supply. So if you're looking for something, and it's not heavy, it weighs a little, but it's not heavy. And the fan doesn't run unless the power supply really comes hot. So that's a pretty quiet one unless you're running really, really high power all the time. And saying that, there's going to be some sponsors in a few seconds, and I'll come back talking about supplies just after. There's an Echo Delta 5 station on 21257 upper sideband calling CQ contest. 21257 upper sideband. Echo Delta 5 is a Spanish station. So back on power supplies. This is where, and it's not too heavy, so it's easy to bring along everywhere, and will power up your transceiver without any problems. And I have, it's a different brand, but it's obviously very similar. Actually, the meters are very, very similar. And I don't know if I can show you guys, but if we go here, you might actually be able to see it. That right here, there you go, down there. That's the supply I'm using. That's the 50 amp supply. And it has 2 meters, one for voltage, one for amps. And it has the, contrary to this one, it has a cigarette plug for powering devices. So that's also pretty cool for that. That one also not that expensive. 100. I paid, I think Canadian. I paid around 190, $200. Probably less in the US. Probably like 130, 140. Once again, well made. Doesn't even run hot unless I would key up probably constantly. And it is capable of peaks of 50 amps, which means it could easily run 30, 35 amps continuous without any problem. And it is definitely, these are inexpensive in what supplies are, and they're really good. Both of them, the one that I showed you and that one, zero noise. I have no noise whatsoever. I don't even need to use the noise offset. There's just no noise anywhere. Not that it's not creating noise. If I use a radio nearby, I do see spikes of noise coming from it. But in a a well shielded antenna with a shielded cable coming in and all of that, a coax, it just zero noise. I don't see the noise at all. I don't even have to play with this with the offset, because that one also has a noise offset. And a little heavier than the other, but not that much. Honestly, it's a little bigger, but they're great power supplies. Honestly, these are quality, and they are made in China, but they're quality. And you know what? At first, I thought, well, someday I'll have a linear power supply of some sort. I don't see why anymore. These are great. I would buy another one, another 50 or another 30 amp, rather than buying any, a $600 linear. I don't even see why I should do that anymore. So, anyways, that's the talk about power supplies here. Michael W., nice to have you on board. Cheers. I'm not having alcohol here. This is my usual cranberry and sparkling water. So cheers. And it's raining quite hard right now. So because of Sheila, that blew all of that rain over here, I'm stuck in the rain now. So anyways, hope that that answers your question, Francis. Tony, good news. British hams to get use increase in wattage. Nice. That's cool. Cool. Electric Bloke, nice to have you here from England. We have Jim Gordon, nice to have you here from Dundee, Scotland, where it's 23 degrees. Summer weather for a change. That's cool. Greg, you should show all your radios next Saturday. Yeah, I'm going to try to check that out. Maybe not next Saturday. We'll be looking at maybe a few of the the Canadian stations for Canada Day contest, but next, maybe the week after, we'll checking that out. Berker Ersoz, TB6BEA, which, okay, record. Nice to have you here from Turkey. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Bowman's, is anyone still listening to 2182 megahertz? Most countries still monitor 2182. It is still in when I do my utility column, I did a column where I was talking about marine stations. I came across many PDF documents from different countries. One from Greenland, which actually surprised me at the amount of marine broadcasts and warnings and all the listening that's done from Greenland, a place where we don't monitor much of information, but it's extremely low frequencies in general, except there's a few frequencies in the 4 megahertz range. But most of the documents that I've seen that talk about marine broadcasts and monitoring, even here, the if you look at the Canadian Coast Guard manual, 2182 is still extensively monitored for emergency, for search and rescue, and all of that. So, Vianney Arsenault, have an Elenco here with a 5 amp, 10 amp, and 32 amp surge. Best one for me. What else do we have? Josh Kinder, nice to have you on board. Francis Moore, I will be getting one of the tech power supplies. Oh, you're going to be happy with that. The only thing I will warn about these power supplies, because they are still switching supplies, they are creating some harmonics, like a lot of the switching power supplies. Like I said, in my case, with the feed line going outside up to the backyard, there's no noise on the radio. But if you use a radio that's not too far from the supply, if the antenna of the radio isn't too far from it, it will pick up some of the harmonics, but you do have the offset that you can move it away if it is over something that you're listening. Um, so keep in mind that that's the the possibility here. Then you shortwave. We'll look into that power supply for my next transceiver. Yep, do. It's the other one I have. I don't know if I still have the manual here. Let me check it out. It was on this table for a long time. It was on this table for a long time. And it's not here. Let me check here. So I don't see it. Just a second. Yeah, I don't see it. But it wasn't far. It was like really near here for a long time. Nope. Or up here, maybe. Yeah, it is. So this is the 50 amp one. This is the brand that I have. Some kind of Jesverti SP. What is it? SPS 30. I got the 52. So they have a 30 and a 50. I got the 50. And this is the power supply, the 50 amp one that I got. And it is amazing supply. Amazing supply. It's got a cigarette. It's got here 2 sets of outputs that are good for, I think, something like 2 amps each. The cigarette lighter plug is for 10 amps. And this one has an interesting feature. So on the back, there's a switch, which is right here. That switch does 2 things, because you can set the power supply from 9 volts to 15 volts. So it has that capability, 9 volts to 15 volts up to 50 amps. And that switch here, when you switch it on, the power supply gets 13.8 volts, and you cannot change it. So in my case, it's switched on so that I don't overdrive the power in by accident. So it's 13.8 volts, but it has a variable from 9 to 15 volts if you want, up to 50 amps. And very sturdy. This 50 amp one, I've never, ever, ever heard the fan turn on. Just to give you an idea. The fan turns on by the temperature. It's a temperature sensor. Man, these are great. And of course, there's a noise offset and all of that. Pretty cool, honestly. I recommend this to everyone. It is definitely a good supply, and it is good quality. And you know what? You won't have to dish out too much money, and they're not that heavy. So if you have, move your maybe you're going somewhere, you want to bring some power with you. It's not heavy to bring along. It's not like one of those really heavy linear power supplies. Risto, nice to have you on board from Sweden, and currently celebrating midsummer. Nice to have you here, SM0SBT. So, yeah, we are in the longest days of summer right now. In a couple of days, we're going to start already losing a couple of minutes every day until we get into winter. So, we are in the middle of summer propagation right now. Matt says it's 84.4, 29.91 Celsius in Denver, Colorado, and had a thunderstorm over inch of rain in an hour. That's a lot of rain. Terrence, I use an MFJ 35 amp power supply that takes care of most of my needs. Richard Wagner, yes, they are heavy. Yeah, indeed. Matt says only seeing heavy field day activity on 20 meters here in Colorado. Hardly anything on 15, and never mind 10 right now. Terrence, my buddy's pyramid power supply blew up on him. The one of the things that I noticed on the pyramid power supply, that pyramid supply I've had for a long time because of the CB radio, and I already had noticed that it probably wasn't the best thing in the world. When I got my my ham ticket, my ham license, I actually took it to power the Yaesu FT450 that was given to me. And that's where I noticed that the power supply was crazy noisy. Plus, over heavier use, the fan started to vibrate in the back, and it would make noise. So I thought, man, what a load of crap that power supply is. So the Pyramid PSV, I think it's PSV 30 is the model. Stay away from that piece of crap. I can tell you, it's still sold, and it's sold even under brand names that are not Pyramid. But man, stay away from that piece of crap. KW 1161, nice to have you here from Tucson, Arizona. TB Oslowski, nice to have you here in Alberta. 21257 USB noisy but readable. We have what do we have? Let me just go back here. So Jim Gordon, nice to have you here. The Win 1960, nice to have you on board. Richard Wagner running is ATS25s off a T off same antenna, which shows signals at the same level on both. As long as they're not interfering with each other, because sometimes that's the problem with using just a splitter. Sometimes one can interfere with the other. They don't all do. Sometimes it could depend on the frequency or tuning, but it can happen. But if they're not interfering with each other, it works. I mean, it does the job. Catalin, nice to have you on board, my friend. What else do we have? Peach mango sparkling water. Cheers. Cool. Sheila, good news, Jill. Rain is starting to line up. Sending that your way. It's already working, I think. Jim Gordon, current situation in Russia reminds me of when the famous Joe Adam of Radio Moscow announced the August 91 coup leaders as a load of drunks. Yeah. Blogger Die, nice to have you on board in Virginia. CB Punisher, do you ever talk or listen to DX on this 27385 lower sideband CB? I often listen mostly to see what's on. I also listen to the out of band guys on 27555. But the only thing I have for that is my Uniden um 980 SSB device that I could use. I have a small mobile CB antenna on the shed in the backyard, but it's not that great. I need a better antenna. I've never tried to. I would guess that when conditions are good, even though it's only 12 watts, I might be I might be capable of a little bit of DX. Well, the best would be to use a more powerful transceiver illegally, but Francis Moore, great meeting up in the week for the BBC Antarctica broadcast. It was a lot of fun, honestly. It was really a lot of fun. I got to say that it was, and I got a lot of feedback from people saying that they just wanted to thank me for creating that moment of all of us together listening to the BBC Midwinter. It was kind of a fun meetup and a fun thing. This is kind of cool. I as time permits, I'm trying to think of out of band, out of moments, any time of day possible meetups of okay, let's just tune around. Not something like this where I'm going to talk a lot more. We're going to tune around. I'll talk about what's we're hearing and so on. People can tune together. I know a lot of people had a lot of fun when I used to do that. It's really depending on how much time I have, but that is definitely something I'm looking at also at random times of day and just check out the bands. Bowman's, what about Navtex? Navtex, there's still quite a few countries that have Navtex. The ones that I hear the most here for Navtex transmissions are Argentina, L2C. I hear that one a lot. There's Boston in Massachusetts that sends out Navtex transmissions. I hear these in the summertime, the Iqaluit, Nunavut, Canada Navtex stations. If you guys remember, was it last year, the year before, that I heard the Iqaluit late at night with you guys, and I called the number, and there was this girl that answered on the phone, which was kind of an interesting moment. There's also I've been hearing some Navtex from countries that I thought didn't have some. By accident I came across one from SVO station in Greece. I came across TAH from Turkey also. So this is kind of interesting. No, the power supply is DC only. Catalan. Plug or die, have a battery charger that floods the house with RFI, so it's rarely plugged in. Plug or die, the killer that I'm still looking to solve is the dock containment fence, and it's not the power supply because it's just as bad on battery backup. Okay. Probably the way that it handles current or the power. Any shortwave, very nice. I just Googled it. I will look into that power supply. Just for TSPS 52. You'll like it. Great, great, great supply. Honestly, for the price, very, very happy with it. Papier Écriture, nice to have you here. Anybody using a T2 FD antenna, diamond, as a shortwave listening radio antenna? Francis Moore, 114 pounds, Amazon UK for the tech powered 30 amp supply. I paid that 30 amp, I paid 129 Canadian, I think. So technically, I know that in Europe, a lot of things seem to be a little more expensive than here. But technically, that would mean that I would have paid maybe the equivalent of 80 pounds for it, something like that, 80 or 90 pounds. Keegan DXer, my dad, the 9JEF, uses an MFJ4035 adjustable regulated DC supply with cigarette lighter for the ICOM IC7300. What else do we have? So, anyways, if anybody is looking for a good supply and doesn't want to break the bank, these are amazingly good. I can tell you that. Starbird, nice to have you on board from the Philippines. Pretty cool. Electric Block, I use an old Watson W30 AM PSU. Works great, but the case seems to buzz when I run. Sometimes there are these weird things that happen. One of the things that I remember from an old linear supply that I had in the 80s, and I would run when I would run things that would require a lot of power. The magnetic field from the transformer would actually interact with the metal case around it, and it would vibrate on the table. And I remember um, late at night powering up my CB and a few things on it, and it was really quiet, but I could hear these buzzing, and I was wondering what's that, and I couldn't figure out until I moved close to it and noticed that the more power I was drawing from the power supply, the higher the buzz. And it explained also another thing. When I would use something that really drew a lot of power, it buzzed enough that it explained why sometimes I had noticed that it would move on the table. And I was like, I didn't touch it. And you look at it. I looked at it like a month later. I didn't touch anything, and I'm like, wow, it's like an inch away from where it was. So it tells you how how strong the buzzing was. It was capable of actually having it slightly move on the table, which was so funny. Because often they have to think about things like that for the design. When the magnetic fields become really, really powerful, they can interact with all the metal parts on it. Kilo 6109, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Marcel, Viano Marcel. Bonsoir, bienvenue. J'espère que ça va bien. Starbird's starting to listen to the radio and enjoying it. Pretty cool. And that part of the world, you have a lot of signals, so that could be very interesting to monitor. Recently acquired a Texan PL 990. That's a good radio. Viano Marcel GS8 colon 27246 is fun. Yeah, I've never checked that. That'd be kind of cool. I've never tried anything GS8. I need to check that out. There's a few things I want to do this week. I want to complete the setup of FLDG and do some PSK, try some PSK 31 and different modes. So I'm going to be checking that out. Danny Shortwave says, Joe, bring back the 102-inch CB steel whip for that CB radio. You know what? I think I still have it somewhere. I think it's stored in the shed in the back. I think it's. I hope it because I know what I did. Is I stored it in the shed, and because it's one piece, I it probably is bent like this. I hope it didn't. Like when I take it out, it doesn't stay like that. It actually comes back straight. I need to check that out because the one I have now is very crappy. It's a thing that I had for a long time, and it's a very small mobile magnetic base, and it doesn't perform very well. But that 102-inch would do very very well probably. It's like 6 meters. I did some 6 meter activity this week. It I noticed that my antenna, my end fed, is not the best for 6 meters. So I thought that maybe one thing I could do is set up my disc cone in the back. I think on 6 meters, my disc cone could be better with my Yaesu than my end fed is actually with the Yaesu. And I know that it's designed to transmit on six. So, because the Tram 1411 is designed to transmit on CB on 10 and on 6 and on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. I think the design is made for that. There's the two elements that you get to adjust depending on where you want to transmit. I'm gonna have to check that out. Any suggested for mobile dual band on this for semi trucks? Maybe somebody could talk or we as an idea for our friend here for an antenna. Vienna, yeah, our friend Starbird from Philippines. Pretty, yeah, almost middle of the night there, early morning. John, Tampa, Florida. Nice to have you on board. Um, what else do we have? Miguel Molina, nice to have you here. Justin, nice to have you on board. New subscriber here. I'm just starting to get into shortwave. Cool. You're at the right place. You got any questions? No problem. Tristan, when you're making contacts, do you ever turn down your power output just to see how far you can go or go on less power? I will sometimes experiment and do very low power and see what I can do. Definitely. I sometimes will turn it down to 5 watts and try a call or try something and gradually go up. Even on FT8, I've so many times on FT8, I just turn it down to 5 watts and see where will somebody answer me with just 5 watts on my end fed on FT8? And man, it's so surprising. I got 5 watts. I got contacts in Europe. I got contacts. So now I'll of course to attract the attention. When I put at 5 watts, I always put QRP so that people know that I'm running low power. But man, it's so surprising to see that just 5 watts makes it really far away. And now it's time for some ads from our sponsors. Oh, isn't there a yeah, there's a contest. There's another Spanish station here with a contest. 21299. I isn't there something like the King of Spain contest or something? So, anyways, yeah. So, like I was saying, Tristan, very often, pretty good signal, the guy. 21,299. Justin just started using his new Texan PL330. Great little radio. Gonna have fun. Wood Turner, nice to have you here. And greetings. And Southern Pennsylvania. Pretty cool. RJ Dakota, TXN PL330 is an awesome set. Absolutely. Starbird learning a lot from this channel. Pretty cool. This is the place for that. Tony had to send back my H501X. It had a couple of faults. One, it completely became unresponsive one day, had to be reset. And the second, the Texan engineers agreed with an issue with the 4 kilohertz bandwidth on SSB. Wow, that's weird. That is so weird. That's possible, Francis. Yeah. Would account maybe for the price difference. NJDXer, nice to have you here. Richard Wagner, PL330 is a fantastic radio. Win 1960, watching and working on a power supply system for all my DC radios. Long wave, Justins, it depends where you are in the world. In Europe, there are still some broadcasts like AM radio in North America. But for a lot of the world, including North America, non-directional beacons. So if you hear these tones and some Morse code, it's airport beacons. That pretty much is all around the world on some part of the band. And there's some experimental stuff. Depending on where you live, you can maybe hear stuff. There are some parts of the world where it's going to be very quiet on long wave. Depends where you live. Richard Wagner, if you had an antenna tuner, you could use your end fit for the CB. Yeah, but I would need an external antenna tuner for that because the CB radio does not have an internal ETU. I did plug it in once to see how it was working, but it gave me it gave me a 2. When I plugged my CB radio on my end fed, it gave me something like a 2-to-1 standing wave, which technically isn't that bad. 2-to-1, I'm not losing that much power at a 2-to-1. So maybe I should actually retry the end fed with the CB, even without even without a ATU to match it perfectly, because it did work. It was like a 2. Last time I tried, it's something like a 2-to-1 on SWR, which, like I said, isn't that bad actually. It's not like it's infinite or really, really, really high. 2-to-1 is technically is still workable. Marshall vaping trucker got a live stream. Cool. Yeah, we're kind of listening to some hams right now. There's a 21299. There's this Spanish ham. If anyone to know, radio communications for me, one of the most interesting words when we can imagine that we can hear communications all around the world. And if we have the authorization to communicate, wow. Yep. Tony says, Anna said, checked our first ever sample of the 501X and a new H501 unit. These radios show the same thing. The LCD shows 4. but based on audio sound, the bandwidth is different. Mine is not like that. Tony, after discussing with Texas engineers, informed me that this is an existing bug in software and that all units have this. I can't say that I've noticed. I would have to check it out. If I look here, do I have mine class? Let me check that out here. I'm going to put the antenna cable. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to try it out now. I'm going to try it with that signal. So let me just check it out here. Let me do something here. I'm going to, let's get a single sideband signal. Is there anything that I could tune right now? 6.4. Check it out. So let's put well, I think there's a lot of thunderstorms not that far away because static crashes are crazy. So AM bandwidth. Well, on mine, the 4 and the 3 are different. If I put it in AM mode, let's try on AM. Let's see, I'll try this, 15,000. Anything that I can tune, 15,580, 770. Try to get something strong so I can notice. There we go. Bandwidth. Nope. It is not the case that all the radios are like that, because mine definitely has a difference between 4, between 3, between 2, and AM. Every bandwidth sounds different. They are, and it does not default back to anything. When I turn it back on, if I look where I am, it's where I left it. So if I change that, 6, turn it off, turn it back on, bandwidth has stayed the same. If I go back to sideband, change it, 3, 2, turn it off, turn it back on. Yep. Mine does not at all exhibit anything that you're talking about. This does not do what you're saying. All the bandwidths by ear, I find there is an actual difference, and I do notice it. When I turn it back on, it actually works. So that's kind of interesting. They're obviously not all like that because mine isn't, for sure. And you got to be careful because based on audio does not mean anything. Very, very important to understand one thing. These are bandwidths done by a chip. They are bandwidths, but you can't compare, for example, 4 kilohertz of that radio with another radio. Doesn't work like that. Each radio is different. Keep in mind that what you hear and what you see, you can't compare it like that, really. And you can't compare it with another radio. It doesn't really work like that. So be careful in what you might think is wrong and which is not. Now, the fact that yours, if you turn it off and turn it on and it's always defaulting to the same setting, that mine doesn't do. But mine doesn't. Mine is sounds correct in every way. Tony. René Charbonnier, nice to have you here from the Netherlands. Shelly, I watch those ads so you can get revenue. Cool. Well, it's not, it's still better than TV. TV has ads, every 5 minutes on something? Here they're 30 minutes right now, so ain't too bad. So, Miguel, SSB King of Spain contest. Yeah, that's what I thought. KM4OOS, nice to have you on board from Alabama. Nice to have you here. Let's go down. Joey Jojo, how long have you been a ham? I've been a ham for a year and a half now. I got my ham license in December of 2021. So it's been a year and a half now. RJ Dakota, our airport beacons are slowly being removed. Yep, slowly they are, and unfortunately. Danny Shortwave, I got FT8 contact on 10 meters from Japan with 7 watts on my hand. Fed sloper in my backyard with the Xiegu G90. Pretty cool. It's incredible what you can do with just a little bit of power. Here, the biggest problem, and that's what I have to live through. And when I had a contact with MDK2 Matt on 80 meters, because we tried every band, we've got pretty much all our bands. We're missing on HF. We're missing 160 now. I think it's the only one that's missing. But my antenna doesn't tune there, so I can't do it. I could if I want there. I know that I can if I shorten the coax and move the radio closer in the kitchen. It does tune 160 when I'm there with a very short coax, but it doesn't with the long coax I got here. It doesn't want to tune 160. On 80 meters, I did an experiment when we tried to contact each other on FT8. I put my SDR on with the MLE30 in the front, and I fired up the software, FLDG. Not FLDG, WSJTX, sorry, for FT8. And I did the contacts here called CQ on 80 meters with the NFED. I've known for a long time that on the lower frequencies, my MLE30 performs way better than my NFED because it has less noise. And immediately noticed that when I called CQ FT8, my Yaesu on NFED, I would not receive anything. I would not hear anything. But on the MLE30, on the SDR, I'd see some people answering back to my CQ. So it showed me that, okay, they are calling me back. They hear me. I don't hear them. So that was a very interesting experiment. So on many bands, my problem is way more to receive than to transmit. Radio Kid woke up at 3 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday morning and couldn't go back to sleep, so I got up and listened to our RNZ Saturday Night Music program, 11725. Cool. RJ Dakota, my next door neighbor, is an air traffic controller and gave me the frequencies for the local airport for my D808. Works very well. John Tampa, here in the Gulf Coast of Mexico, Florida. I only pick up one non-directional beacon. Tony, will you be doing a review of the new ATS 120? I did look into it. The problem that's preventing me from actually doing it is the price that it's sold Canadian. It's like the lowest price I've seen right now is at like 229. I don't want to pay that for that thing. For me, that's too much money for what it is. Maybe if I do find it at a really in like lower price somewhere, but right now that's too expensive. For sure. John Beckham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. KW1161 picking up South American ham on 21321.7. ATS 20 plus, your thoughts? I got the ATS 20 and I got the ATS 25. Don't like the 20, but I like the 25. It's unique. I don't know. It depends what you want to do. Jenny, I'm really curious. What kind of antenna are you using now to catch 21299? End-fed. It's a half-wave end-fed in the backyard. It's actually a V end-fed in my backyard, Vienna. Blogger Die can hear the ham on 21299 here in Virginia on the PL 880. Ricky, PL 990X is kind of like that too. 4 kHz sounds exactly like 3. Mine doesn't. I can distinctly hear there's a difference. I'm trying the PL 990. Let me try the 990. It's right here. That's interesting. 990. Locked. $990. I'll tune a medium wave station. Okay, I'm going to get out of single sideband. Let's around 800. And I will change the bandwidth. Okay, if I go on sideband.
Majority of Canadians would like a national school nutrition program, and that, of course, is exactly what you folks have.
Let me try something here. Wait, I'm going to put the antenna here, and I'm going to try. Let's try 10051. Is it 2? Yeah, I should have. Let's try something here. I'm going to find a signal to tune in. Because on the 501, I could hear there was a difference. So let me just check out something here. So if I change the bandwidth, up 3 and 4 does sound the same. On the 990, I do have that. I hear absolutely no difference between 3 and 4. But on the 501, I had a difference. On the 501, I definitely had a difference. Oh, this is interesting. I never noticed on the 990. Let's do it again on the. I just want to do it again here because I want to listen again. So, bandwidth, SSB. Yeah. On the 501, I get 4 and 3 are different. But on the 990, 4 and 3 are the same. So this is interesting. So it could it be a firmware version thing? That is interesting. So on my 501, they're different, but now I can confirm that at 990, they sound exactly the same. That is interesting. Very interesting. Huh. So this is kind of interesting. Did something change over time? Huh. What else do we have? Francis Moore not picking up 29. It's 21,299, not 2. Yeah, okay. Vianney 21,299 is better now. 5.5. Yeah, I know that my NFED is very, very good on 20 meters, on 15, and on 10. It kicks butt. It is very resonant and receives very well there. So maybe that's why I might be receiving 299 a little better. Is he still? Yeah, he's still there. Ooh, there's a strong one that just appeared a little higher. So it was coming in quite well. What else do we have? Jay Waterston 69. Nice to have you on board. Moments, good Android app to show path of darkness. You mean the day and night difference on Earth? To show the I have one which was, what's the name of it? I had one on the let me just check it out here. There's one I got here, a world map. Let me just check it out. I had one, but I don't remember the name. I think I just entered day and night. Day, night, map. So, yeah, it's day and night. Day and night map. It's as simple as that is the name. Day and night map for Android. It's a free app. And let's open it. Here we go. This is what it looks like. There you go. You just have to set it up. And I believe there's different maps. You just you can zoom in, zoom out. You can settings, background color. So that's one. That's one. So day and night map for Android. Day night, if that's what you're looking for. Matt, my antenna doesn't tune 160 meters either, but however, I think I have another one that should. What we're going to do, Matt, you know what? It's if we can find a night that we're kind of seeing signals that, it'd probably be more in the winter, but see that signals seem to propagate close to our respective location. What we'll do is we'll talk in advance to set up. Because what I'll have to do is I'll have to take the Yaesu, bring it in the back, plug it in with a short coax, and then it's going to tune 160, and then we can maybe try and see what happens. Who knows? Because when I was in the back with that, I had like a what was it, 20 feet coax. I made at least 200 contacts on 160. I was going out there. It was surprising. My biggest problem was exactly the same that on 80, the very high noise level that I got. Um, yeah, Radio Kid. There's a here. I'm gonna the non-directional beacon list from William Hepburn. William Hepburn. Long wave. There we go. This is the list. It is updated all the time. This run right now, it's been updated. What? It's been updated June 5th, 2023. And he actually will let you know what's decommissioned or not. This is the best long wave list. And you'll be able to check out where it is actually and how much power it has. And at the same time, you can maybe try to DX some of them on the list. Because sometimes we hear one, but if you really take the time, tune single sideband, and take the time to go very slowly, you might be surprised that you actually hear a lot of weak non-directional beacons. But you have to tune them in single sideband to notice by ear that there's something there. Danny Shortwave. That says, whoops, I did a little something here. Here we go. Says, same here, my infed antenna. It is better at transmitting than receiving. I'm having that issue with Australia and New Zealand on 10 meters. I'm heard there, but I can't receive. No problem, Jenny. Take care. Michel Colette. It is smoky in Lebe. So, yeah, a lot of places. I have a friend of mine that lives in up in the Saguenay area. And she says she has a hard time getting outside because there's so much smoke that it actually burns her eyes. So it's crazy. So you set it to 4, switch it. When you switch it back on, the screen will say 4, but its audible is 3. Okay, let's try it. But honestly, for me, it's not a problem, and I would never return a radio for just that. Who cares? It's such a small problem. You just switch it back on and off. I just hope you're not returning it just for that, because honestly, it's a loss of time. Who cares? It's there's little details like that we got to be careful. Hey, our sponsors are next. So let's see. So let's check it out here. So I put it to 4, 3, 2. Okay, 3, 4. I'll switch it off at 4. There we go. Switch it back on. Okay, yeah, I get it now. Yeah, you're right. It does it. But honestly, I don't care. Honestly, that's the kind of thing that who cares? Who cares? It doesn't. It's not something that prevents you from listening. You just play with your bandwidths when you turn it on. That's all. I don't see that. It's not a fault for me. It's an annoyance. One of those minor annoyances that radios could have. Every radio, if you start playing with it, will have that kind of annoyance, honestly. I would never return or complain about that on this radio because I don't see any annoyance of that. You just, switch the bandwidth. That's all. For me, that's trying to find flaws that aren't much of a problem. If you start playing, like I said, with any other radio, you're saying GNs, whatever, I'm sure that somebody that plays with them constantly will find little things that are like that on every radio. But honestly, for me, that's not a fault. It's so what? Is it that difficult to just switch the bandwidths? I don't see a problem there. I can't even say that I would not even make a video that it's an annoyance, honestly, because whatever radio would do that, I don't care. It's not a problem. If you're trying to do that with every radio, Tony, you'll never be happy with no radio. Don't take it personal what I'm saying here, but it's like we got to. I get a lot of requests of every type of radio. Of have you noticed that when that happens, or when you do this, that is happening with the radio, and the constant call of should I return it, and it's like no, stop trying to find little things that in reality, what does it change? I don't even, I turn it on, it's not the same bandwidth, so what? It still goes to the bandwidth I want when I switch. Just saying. Just saying. Sometimes you have to be careful not trying to find flaws and going crazy over a little thing that's so small. If you're returning it just for that, I tell you, you're returning it for nothing. It's you're focusing on a little detail rather than enjoying the radio, listening to what you want. And we got to be careful with that. And you're not, and I'm not ranting at you at all, Tony, but it's a common thing for a lot of people that I've noticed. Little things that'll tell me, "Oh, I returned it because of this," and I'm like, "Why?" It's such a small detail. So what? So what? We got to be careful. There are too many people are concentrating on trying to find flaws rather than concentrating on listening to their shortwave bands and enjoying the radio. If, like I said, if you do it with every radio, you'll find stuff. You know, hey, you want me to rant at the SDR player SPDX I got? Yeah, it sometimes gets images in 2 megahertz. Will I return it for that? No, it's a great radio. I love it, and I've learned to deal with it. If I return it, what am I gaining? Nothing, and I just don't have the radio anymore. It's like it's just for that. Justin heard WWV last night on Fort Collins. Francis Moore have been trying to run a SDR play on an Android tablet, and you'll have to go to a Windows. Any SDR, that you can, even an RTL SDR V3 that technically could run with SDR Touch. It depends on the tablet, depends on the version you have. It depends on so many things that the thing to do is run it on Windows, or at least for now, because SDR Connect will be Mac, will be Linux. So, but Android, it's like Chromebooks, SDR and Chromebooks, pretty much no. You have to have something. I always say whatever platform you like. You might like a Mac, you might like Linux. There's nothing like Windows for running all sorts of things, and that's the way it is. Now, there are ways, of course, like I always like on the tech channel, I get, well, you can run Windows apps, and I always answer back, why will I run Linux to go run a Windows app in a virtualized environment? I'll just run Windows. That's all. But um, I think Windows for SDRs and for the world that we live in and radio stuff, Windows is the way to go. That's it. Whether you like Windows or not, is the way to go. That's where you're going to run and have all the choices that are amazing. Um, you know, Sometimes we got to step out of our little minding of I only want Mac computers in my life. Yeah, no, look, you can buy a not that expensive PC with Windows, and you know what, run every software you want, and stop always asking, oh, well, I can run this, I can run that. It's like, yeah, yeah. What else do we have? Sergeant Rock, nice to have you here. Great advice on switching power supplies. What a difference compared to both Anchor linear supplies. Very heavy to hold in sticky Hawaii. Definitely. Tony, I agree it's not a showstopper. I told Anna I'd still keep it, but then it went completely unresponsive a few days later, and that was when it was going back. But remember about the unresponsiveness. Did you remove the battery? Did it come back to life? Be careful in handling any radio. If you touch the antenna with your hands, if it's a day that is dry, every radio will lock on you. I've had that with almost every radio. Make sure that it's not the way you handle it. If you clip antennas, if you do all sorts of, if you plug in the antenna, unplug it, plug it, unplug it, you will have it freeze at some point. They all do that. Once again, be careful that it's unresponsive because of a fault, not unresponsive because of the handling that you do. If I touch, me, it happens in the wintertime. And the wintertime is very dry because of the heating inside. And it's so dry that just moving in my chair and I touch something metal and I get electric shock. If you don't think about it, then you just touch the radio. You don't even have to feel the zap, the electric, the electricity between your finger and the antenna. It might be unnoticed to you, but you might have still zapped the receiver. And what happens is that you remove the batteries, you wait until the display goes off, put the batteries back, and everything's back to normal. So sometimes it's a handling issue also. You got to be careful. My H501, my 990, they froze. Since I have them, they've probably froze a couple of times. Just remove the battery, put them back. It's all right. My St. G and ATS 909X2 froze. Um, I had a lot of radios do that. By the handling, it's just, to be careful sometimes, that it's not, the handling that you do, you know. But did you remove the batteries completely and then put the batteries back? Because if it really doesn't respond back or doesn't come back, I understand that it might have an issue, and that's not impossible. But just, Trustin, pretty heavy wood smoke smell here in Western Newfoundland, enough to cut my outdoor shortwave listening time. They were telling today that the smoke from the fire is actually even reaching the UK on Monday. So if you guys in the UK find that something is weird, you know. And so you did remove the batteries for 24 hours, Tony, and then put them back, right? Artist Alleycrafter's Kitchen. Internet and social media pressure has made returning gear more prevalent than ever now. Yeah. There's always something. There's always something on everything that we buy. I mean, if we start looking, notice when you look at the comments section of of devices. An example of that. Um, an example of that is the power supply that I have, the 50 amp and the 30 amp. You have tons of hams are saying, well, cheap, noisy device. How did you use it? Because it ain't noisy on my setup, but I know that it can be noisy if you don't set it up right. Yeah, what you do, you put the radio next to it and just tested it like that. That's now you're going to test if it's noisy or not, because that's not your setup. If I could agree that it could be noisy if, say, you're using a CB radio and the antenna isn't far from it. Yeah, you will get buzzes. That's definite. But in a good setup with good coax in a certain distance, it ain't. But if you look at these, I can see hams looking at the comments saying, oh, wow, apparently it's a noisy piece of crap, and not buying it and actually passing something that is actually very decent and very good. I would not power a portable radio with it. If I put the Texan H501 next to it on telescopic, yes, it will buzz on the HF bands because it's next to it, receiving all of its harmonics. Um, but if I power my Texan radio with it and it's on the MLE30, I don't really notice any noise. So it's all in the way that you use it and how you test it. It's very, very important. Radio Kid, buy your radios secondhand for cheap, and you won't get any even you get even more forgiving of the radio flaws. Yeah, yeah. Well, man, surprised there's been no chat about the Titanic sub. Well, there's nothing much to chat now that it's imploded, but there was a lot of activity in 13306 and stuff like that. So we had some frequencies we did talk about during the week. Kilometer 61 uses GQRX, cubic SDR. It's just if you like the software and you're happy with it, it's fine. It's just if you want to have choice, Windows is where you have choice. That's the difference. Because I mean, you could be using cubic SDR or whatever and be happy with it. Then you're fine. There's no problem there. It's just that when you start looking around to have choice, that's really Windows where it is. John Tampa says, I tried SDR on Windows 10 compared to SDR on Android. No compare. Windows is the way to go. Blogger Die, I should have returned my Sanjin ATS 405. The band button only works 1/3 of the time, but I didn't. I just keep pushing it until it works. Yeah, maybe it has, maybe the contact isn't that great. Mike WX50, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. Richard Wagner, I knew the Navy knew exactly when it occurred because of the network. Bill Mean, nice to have you here from Pennsylvania. Yeah, they probably anyways knew that it was already imploded because that's where it actually happened. That's when the Navy came out and said, yeah, we heard something on Sunday. Okay, it was already gone. All right, it's already gone. So hey, we're down to chat here, and it's kind of fun to check out the different things and the different this is something we don't talk about a lot, the all the little flaws and the little things that radios can have. I made my review of the of this, and honestly, the biggest flaw that it has is that weird audio distortion when propagation goes up and down. And if it didn't have that, actually, I would probably recommend. So, it's I would not recommend it now because of that. But honestly, It's sensitive and it works, and I'm keeping it because I'm going to deal with it, and I like it. Does record well on cassette, so it's kind of a. It'll remind me of my first, you know, radio that I had with cassette player on it when I was a teenager. It's kind of there's kind of a so it is definitely kind of interesting to check out. Let me just check here. Apparently, I'm live. So but when we talk about flaws on radios, little flaws here and there, man, there's so many radios with all sorts of things, from FM breakthrough that you kind of live with to what we just found, like the flaw that the radios can have when the 990 with 3 and 4, no difference. Where it doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter. That flaw would not matter because it's in single sideband. You notice it, and in single sideband, I'm always at 3 or lower. I don't see why, in general, I should use higher than that because it adds mostly more more noise than anything else. Since single sideband, somebody came to me and said, "Well, I want to have a single sideband radio that has 6 kilohertz, better audio fidelity." You don't, because 2.8 kilohertz or 2.4 kilohertz is kind of the norm of SSB. There's no higher frequencies. The higher frequencies you hear, it's all the hiss and the noise in the band. So there's no logical explanation of why I want to use more than 3, because you're not getting better audio fidelity from 2.4 kilohertz bandwidth signal or 2.8. That's the thing. So, same for AM. When I hear people saying, well, I'm happy with a 10 kilohertz wide filter, audio fidelity is great. Well, your audio in an AM signal is not much more than about 6 kilohertz. So you're getting way more. Yeah, you're getting higher frequencies of noise, much more than of anything else most of the time. So it depends what you're doing and how, how it is. But there's a bandwidth that fits every mode. And so, between 3 and 4. So I probably maybe why I never noticed it. I will never use 4 and single sideband. So probably that's why I never noticed that 3 and 4 sounded the same on the 990, for example. And for the 501, never noticed because I never used 4. I never noticed that when I switch off or on, that is different. And even if I used it, maybe I just didn't notice, didn't take the time to notice it, you know. But it's interesting that all the radios have these little quirks. There's all sorts of things. There's one radio that I have. Which one is it? I think it's a St. Gian that has this weird bandwidth. It's not a bandwidth. It's a kind of clock weirdness. When I turn it on and off frequently, the clock changes, and you're like, What's happening?" It's so weird. But and I went online and um, I did see comments of, "Oh, yeah, mine does that too." Oh, okay. One thing also to remember, there's a thing that I saw. I don't know if it's on the Shortwave group. I meant to answer and I didn't. I didn't. Um, I think I didn't. I forgot about it or something like that. But anyways, the um, the thing about it is, the message was about the D808, the HH data D808, and wondering why is my clock changing when I put it to UTC? It changes back to another time zone, and it's because you got to understand the D808 is capable of one feature. When you tune FM with RDS, it can actually fetch the time from the RDS signal and fix the clock. So if the clock you set it to UTC and the RDS functionality to actually give you the time is on, the clock will switch back to the time that the RDS signal is giving it. So it's not a flaw. It's just that when it's turned on, it changes the clock. And a lot of radios with RDS actually have that functionality of setting it up. Gary 24 fan, rain is setting is getting ready to start here in northern Maine. Do I get to blame Sheila? Nah, I think we're gonna leave her alone. Darren Rogers, what is Sosa's network? It's a sound. It's what sound? I don't remember each letter, but it's basically the the um, the Navy monitors underwater sounds. So when it imploded, they probably heard something with that network. So they hear the sounds underwater of all sorts of things. It's a kind of a warning system, underwater warning system. Shortwave archive radios with cassette deck are always fun. Yeah. Blogger Die still has a few floppy. I have about 500 floppies here that I don't use much. All 3.5 inch. And I do have one 5.25 inch that I would love to see after all these years. I have a 5.25 inch that is PC. It's my final exam in high school when I made a little program to have a little flying saucer go across the screen. That'd be kind of fun, but it needs to have an old PC to run it. What was it? It was in DOS. It was in like PC DOS or something like that. And it ran back then on something that was probably something like a 80 to 86 or even a PC XT. Bill Mead, good luck finding the perfect radio. My Japan radio NRD 525 is a tad hissy. Otherwise, it's pretty great. Yeah, there's always something. My Yaesu, great transceiver. A little bit of things that are kind of weird. Why is it that AM is stuck with a 12 kilohertz filter? Why the hell did you design it like that? Why can't we switch the roofing filter? We can't on AM mode, but we can on SSB. I don't get it. Weird things. But you know what? Over time, it hasn't, with my shortwave listening and all of that, it hasn't really changed anything. It's great, and it's great as a shortwave radio in general. Matt K5 ARP just got done with field day using Kenwood TS590D. Wow, that's a different experience going it on HF than seeing it done on YouTube. Big time sun flares. Enjoy the show. Let's have you here. Lagardie, the ATS 405 has a birdie on 800 kilohertz. Yep, some of them do have birdies on a few little spots, definitely. Jim's radio check. Biggest flaw in the radio is Brother Stare. Man. Yep. John Tampa says uses 2.2 on SSB. Joseph, nice to have you here from San Francisco Bay area, scanning the bands on the Texan PL368. Yoo-hoo, Vienna is back. RJ Dakota, that's one reason why I never use the D808 on my local FM, and when I do, I limit its usage to stations that don't use RDS. Sheila says, yep, blame me for the rain in Maine. Is that like the rain in Spain? Yep. Some people are blamed for the rain in Spain, but Sheila's blamed for the rain in Maine. Yeah, I don't listen to FM much either, so it's not a problem for me also. Mr. X, nice to have you on board. And I am enjoying the FTDX10, definitely. Nice to have you here from UK. Sergeant Rock, recommend getting a cheap Windows laptop, 150 just for shortwave SDR, radio programming software. If it breaks, drops, it gets get a new one. No gaming. You don't need that much power to run an SDR. You need it if you want to run all the features and do, full recordings of ranges of shortwave frequencies and stuff. But just for everyday SDR standard use, you don't need that much of power to run an SDR. Neeson Greenwich, nice to have you on board. Have a chance to put my VHF, UHF antenna 10 feet higher. Bit of the pain, worth it. Depends. Depends of how much noise you got. Because honestly, if I don't know how high it is now, but 10 feet isn't that much of a difference, and unless it's very close to the ground, I'm not sure it's really worth the pain. I don't think 10 feet's enough to be worth it. It'd be more worth it if you could find it another spot than just move it up 10 feet, but personally. Radio Kid, the side BFO button gets around the 3 kHz long wave tuning step flaw on the Sony ICF 2002. So, I just found the DA Davidson Airfield 223 kilohertz also close to me. Plug or die automatic RDS time setting in the D808 can be disabled. Yeah, that's there's an on and off and on. I should actually do a video on it to so that everybody knows. So Danny Shortwave still has his old college assignment program, C++, Java, Cabal on floppies. It'd be fun to have. If I had space, one of the things that I would love to do, because I've got my Amiga, my Commodore, I've got my Atari, I've got an old 2600 that I haven't gone to yet. One of the things that I was thinking is it could be fun if I could get like each generation of old PCs. I'd like to have an XT, a 286, and 386, a 486, one next to each other, with all the bells and whistles at the time, like floppy disks and the first hard drives, and then CD player or CD-ROM. I'd like to have that like in sequence. That would be like the Commodore computers, the Amiga, the PCs. I would love to have that, like do a little computer museum in the basement, but no place for that here for sure. What else do we have? Lunar, yeah, feels like it's a requirement that every radio has to have at least one drawback. These things are complex, and let's face it, we're big fans and crazy people about radio. So what happens is that we see some of the flaws and the things that might not, depending on our usage. I think that sometimes these radios are made by engineers that maybe aren't really doing, heavy amateur radio or radio like we do. So they get the grasp of what is needed probably for a good radio, but in there's things that they don't think about. Sometimes it could be something simply because they just don't want to put the extra money for it to have that. That could happen also. Plus, today with some of the radios that have firmware, they're becoming more computers than they are radios, and then the firmware is a program, and you need to have it right, or else something happens. And we are taking a little break with our sponsors in exactly 2 seconds now. 20 meters is really, really starting to become alive here with field day stations. I'm on 14244 right now with station calling CQ field day. So definitely 20 meters getting more and more signals now. Matt, MDK2, my schoolwork found its way to the dump many moons ago. I suggest that anyone else do the same with theirs. Uh, Two Broke Tim, how can a choke work if the cable is wrapped around is insulated? Um, a choke will affect all of the cable because it affects the way that the RF is going through it. And often, the noise is often much more present with the fact that it's the insulation that actually transports all the noise all the way around. So for the most part, that insulation, that braid around the cable, is often the problem of the noise when you have a coax that's noisy. It happens that it's the braid if it's not properly grounded or properly or bad quality. So that choke will remove what's on the braid, which is often what's the problem also. Of course, it could be the conductor in the center, but in the case of an antenna system, you don't want, because a choke has another as a negative effect. A choke can also affect your signal that you're trying to get. Yeah, it can remove noise. It can remove signal too. Got to be careful. But in the case of like a PC cable, the radiation of noise often comes from the insulation. It comes from the braid in the insulation. So basically, um, when you put a choke, first of all, if you talk about purely the insulation, the plastic or the around it, it doesn't matter. The plastic around it does not block any signals. The plastic around it, the choke will have the interaction it needs with the cable inside. That little insulation is too thin to block anything. It doesn't block anything. And if we talk about a PC cable that's making noise, often it's the braid and a shielded cable that's irradiating all that noise. By putting the chokes, you're actually removing that from that cable. Simon Templar, nice to have you on board from the Zion National Park Family Vacation 2023. Well, I hope you're having a lot of fun and I hope you're enjoying. Richard Wagner, I have several old ATX 486 unit. Too many to talk to me. Torben, nice to have you on board. What about Amstrad? They were popular here in Europe. Yeah, I do have a Amstrad PPC 640, which is technically a portable XTPC with LCD screen. Mac WX50. Don't forget the turbo button on some of those old desktops. Oh man, yeah. I remember always telling myself, why the hell you put a turbo button when I will always have it in turbo mode, anyways? You know, I guess most of us just put turbo and left it there. I don't know. I-61, come to my basement. I'm going to show you some radios. That sounds like that sounds like a guy that is trying to attract kids with candy. He's like, come to my basement. I got old computers. Not sure anymore that I want to. John Ash, since radio waves don't work underwater, what means of communications were they using between the submersible and its mothership? They were using radio waves, but they were using extremely low frequency radio waves. What I understand, because I read that voice communications between that depth and the ship is almost impossible. They were using some form of digital transmission that kind of like text messaging, like SMS, and the low kilohertz. Like submarines, they're like at 10 kilohertz, really, 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 really low. Those waves penetrate underwater. and that's the frequency they were probably using underwater at some point. Um, but it's I mean, when you're at the depth of the Titanic, how well does that work? From I had there was a guy that went into another expedition in a different type of submersible that went down to the Titanic. They said that sometimes they had no communications for an hour or two. So it's a very difficult and complex communications. Richard Califano, nice to have you here from Albany, New York. And JDXer, for what it's worth, the bandwidth setting remains locked on my 880 after powering off, then powering on. I never really cared to check this on any of my radios. Yeah, it's like we say, each radio has its little weird quirks. Gary 24 fan amazes me that we have these little boxes that can pick up broadcasts from halfway around the world. Yep, yep. Sheila says, no sponsors. Yeah, it's the way it says it every time it appears is that some of you will see ads, not necessarily everybody. Blogger Dice has never actually found a station with RDS time info. We got a couple here in Montreal. We got a couple that does. So, Boyd, nice to have you here. Thinking ELF for underwater communications. So, it's very low frequencies. Joseph, definitely picking up CQ on 14244, San Francisco Bay. What else do we have? Geek and DX, I remember station with time data on the RDS, but was on Pacific time, even though the station is based in Central Time Zone. Went to manual time. Yeah, my YouTube Premium does not have ads because YouTube Premium. What happens with YouTube Premium is when you watch, for example, my live show, there's a little small chunk of that YouTube Premium subscription that comes to me. Let me check that out. See if I can get it here. Email. Pat. Here we go. So there's one picture. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. So here's our friend Simon Templar sending us a couple of pictures. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Really nice. Really nice. My caregiving duties make it impossible for me to go anywhere, but someday. Richard Califano, been able to receive the Moscow time signal on two frequencies that you gave us. Cool. Yeah, some have a realistic DX394. I see it pop up from time to time. Matt K5ARP and an ICOM 7200. We received a flex radio call around 11:20ish this morning from the middle of Florida. Very impressive with a door screen ground plane. Pretty cool. Greg is happy it was H51X. Cool. Trustin, the little bugs we find in our radios. I had an IT instructor. She called those kind of things undocumented features. Yeah. It's like when I would do my tech jobs and go to some people that found very specific little things and are like, "But can you fix that?" And I would just um I would just answer back, I wasn't aware that that was a problem. Richard Wagner once read when the Trisha went missing, they were also using a kind of hydrophone similar to Sinar. It's possible. Penny C, what is the brand name of your radio with the cassette player? I'd like to buy one. It's the Crosley CT100B. Here we go. So Crosley CT100B. Where else? The Messenger. Are you located in Moronites? No, I'm located in the smack in the middle of the city of Montreal. Yeah, the more we hear about the that submersible, and the more it's kind of scary. I saw a video of a couple that went on board that same thing like last year, and they're looking at what's happening, and they're like, "Wow, we never would have gone in there known that that's the way it was." Shortwave archive. The best part about being 20 miles south of Fort Collins, I can receive WWV on 5 megahertz in the middle of the afternoon. Yeah, it's like me, Rig, being about 100 kilometers from CHU. 3330 usually is pretty much 24 hours. Oh, but Botanical Gardens is great. One of the biggest in the world, from what I heard. It's very, very nice. I don't have it anymore, but I used to go quite often there. And we have here in Montreal, um, if you have a if you're a citizen of the city of Montreal, we have a card that we can get, and that card gives us rebates on museums and things like that. And what's cool with that card is that the botanical garden is free when you have the card, and it's only available to people that live in Montreal. Oh yeah, Crosley. I've seen a lot of stuff over time. I've seen a lot of their vintage looking sound systems and record players. Rotten Animal, I have a computer hard drive that is larger than 3 feet across. Worked in communications since the 80s, and it was going into the garbage. I asked if I could have it. Wow. Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like to see that. No, it's not too bad, Shortwave Archive, honestly. Um, Messenger, huge Rush fan. Loved Morin Nights in Montreal, Saint Sauvant. Yeah, I remember your. I remember when I in the '80s finding it interesting to see that one of the Police albums, I think it's Ghost in the Machine, if I'm not mistaken, was actually recorded at Morin Nights, and even one of the videos. There's one of the videos which is it every little thing she does is magic, or anyways, there's one of the videos where they're outside in the snow with skis, and it is actually done around Moronites in the wintertime. So let me check out once again. Still waiting. Still got no new emails. I'll try in a few seconds again. Simon Templar. Marvin Mutz, nice to have you on board from the Japan Islands. Rotten Animal, I will send you a pic of the hard drive. What's the email? Email? Just send anything to official shortwave radio at gmail.com. It's the best email to send pictures or anything. Mike WX50 was a big Police fan back in the 80s. I know the snow video that you're talking about. So that was here in the province of Quebec in Marinites when they were actually recording and they were outside in the wintertime on that video. It's like if you guys ever watch the video of Shout by Tears for Fears, the one that so it starts off because they're in that video. There's like two sequences. They're like in a basement playing that song, but there's that solo guitar, and they're actually walking on near the ocean shore, and there's that solo guitar on top of a mountain. That's filmed here in Quebec in the Gaspé region in the east. Actually, in that video, you see what we call the Rocher Percé, which is that rock with a hole in it in the ocean. But that was filmed entirely in the eastern part of the province of Quebec. Shout by Tears for Fears. What else do we have? Oh yeah, the ranches are fantastic. I remember going to. I used to go to a place. Ah, here it goes. Pictures coming in. I used to go to a when it was hot in '90s, part of mostly '90s. I used to go to up north to a place where there was a really an isolated lake. Little brother of mine, the Yesu. I like that FT65. I love that. I love this little rig. It's so amazingly sensitive and good on that little antenna. When I get International Space Station repeater, it is so impressive. I can't believe. Just amazing. Boy, I love it. Thanks once again for that gift. Pretty cool. So, anyways, I would go up north to one of the of a very isolated lake where there was a very big beach, and we were just a handful of people that knew that place, which was fun because it never was overcrowded. And when it was hot, we'd spend the day there on the beach. And there was a guy that came from Saskatchewan, and first thing, so we start talking for some reason. We're in the water, and like he doesn't know me, but we starts talking about how beautiful the place is. And at one point, he says, "I'm so amazed at the quantity of mountains you got here." He says, "I come from Saskatchewan, and it's like it's flat. There's nothing." And he says, "I'm amazed when I come here to see this." And it's like, yeah, yeah. Well, depends where you are. Um. Oh yeah, the boulders. I would always was wondering if it happened often because especially when I was going to when I was going to a up north to my father's shack. One of the biggest problems I had was that the one of the biggest things that I always wondered was there was these little right by the roadside there was these little panels that would say that sometimes there could be falling rocks from the cliffs. And I was like, wow, I wonder how often these falling rocks happen on the highway. And the most amazing that I found over the years when going up north there in the Laurentians, when I when I was going there back then, to make a highway, they would, go and surround the mountains. So the highway was always, zigzagging back and forth and moving around. Sometimes you'd almost come back and then go back north. So it made the ride so, uh, you know, so much longer because of all the back and forth going on between the mountains. And when we would go there up north, um, the road was just a 2 lane road. So there was, one lane for one direction and the other lane for the next direction. But as the area over there with Mont Tremblant became more and more popular, it became a problem because the road was too small. So they actually built a bigger highway. And that um, one of the things that was interesting is I had not gone there in a long time. And when I went back, the highway was built, the new highway, the new larger 4 lane highway. But the difference is that when they made that road in the 40s, 50s, whatever, they went around the mountains. But now, new construction technique, they went through the mountains. So I remember going and I was amazed that, wow, they just blow through the mountain and that's it. It's just crazy. Oh man, it was just crazy. It's like, okay, they just blast through the mountains today. No more going left and right. Just going through the mountain. Let's go. But I was amazed. I was like, wow, here they really went through the mountain. There's a mountain on each side, which was one big mountain before. So I don't know, man, it was crazy. 6935 Pirate, very loud in Virginia. PL 880 telescopic. Let's go and check that out. 6.935. And we do have a pirate. Definitely. It's not very strong here, though. I see it, but I don't hear much. It's in the noise, but I see it. Um, the email, I'll put it again. Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. I'll put it back in the chat again. Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. Artist Art Crafter, multitasking, watching the live show and developing film. Don't open the door. The messenger. Can someone recommend a shortwave radio? I'm new to this forum completely. I'm also learning about ham. Depends on how much you want to spend, but there's tons of nice little receivers that are pretty good that are, barely $100. Like a Texan PL 330, XH data, or C Huadon D808. They're pretty nice, inexpensive, and pretty good. So you could start off with that. Depends if you want to have single sideband. Around this time, I hear Chinese station on 13 meters. Is it a jammer? Well, you have to see if it's actually some other broadcast that could be there. There could be jammers, but there could be also some legitimate Chinese stations also. So they're not all jammers. Some are not. Depends. RJ Dakota says, I hear that pirate pretty well here in Winsville, Missouri. Somebody asked earlier, and I forgot to answer about what SDR I would recommend. So honestly, for a no problems, no going crazy on setup type SDR, what I find is probably the best SDR for plug and play. Then all you'll have to do, and it's a big step, but then you'll have to just master the software. I always say, you know what, the SDR Play RSP1A is the best entry level SDR. It's not too expensive. You just plug it in, install the software, it works. Because sometimes people say, well, the RTL SDR V3 isn't that bad. It's not that bad, absolutely. But the problem is, you got to fiddle with the software, install that specific driver. Not everybody is very good with computers. Do you want to, are you comfortable reinstalling a driver over the driver that installs with the different software? If you are, or if you're computer savvy and you really, computers are great for you, then yeah, the RSP, the RTL SDR V3, it's nice, and for the price, I mean, wow. But the thing is, if you're not that great with computers and you want something that you just plug in, install the software, and then just have to learn the software and use it, SDR SP1A is very good. And I think it's the best entry level. After that, up to you. There's good SDRs out there. The RSPDX is great. The HF AirSpy HF Plus Discovery works great. There's also, depending on what you're going to use as software, the one that has the most plugins is the SDR Sharp. If that's what you require, well, the SDR Play devices don't work on SDR Sharp. HF, AirSpy HF Discovery does. It all depends what you're going to do after that, for sure. But entry level, it's entry level. It's just great. So it's nice to see that FT65 Simon Templar. Um, mm, 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 mm. What do we have here? We have Miki Dalmich that shares the picture of Le Rosé Percé from his trip for Canada 150. So that's exactly what you see in the Rotten Animal hard drive. Yeah, look at that, guys. This is crazy. I am so amazed at how technology has evolved to make these so small hard drives with the recording of so much data. It's just crazy. Just crazy. RJ Dakota, pirate breaking through a lot of RF noise, but it's manageable. Rocket Animal, yep. So Greg, Perry Island has awesome views where you go to Perry Island. Yep. Nice little spot. Nice little quiet spot. That's what I like about Perry Island. It's how quiet it is compared to other places. There are weird things happening there that you just don't care about and leave it alone. But it's a neat place. But it's interesting. Perry Island, um, the way the trees are, when the sun starts to go down, it gets dark fast. I mean, around 5, 6 p.m. Even if the sun, sets at 9 p.m. here in the summer, it starts getting eerie. And I noticed that there's a lot less people. They don't want to be there. I don't mind, but definitely gets a little weird. It's like it's in any forest anyway. In midday it's cool, but when the sun starts going down, it gets dark real fast in the forest, and when there's a lot of trees. Some more advertisement coming up in a few seconds. We'll be back. So that Pirate 6935, it's there, but it's really in the noise here. I'll try it on the Yaesu, but the Yaesu usually is a lot crappier on that low frequency. Well, that is interesting. That is very interesting. It's very noisy on my SDR with the MLA 30, but it's pretty good. It's actually pretty good on my Yesu with the NFED playing a Beatles song. Pretty good. Well, I'm surprised. Usually it's worse. That's kind of interesting. Ah, that's the do da 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 da. Thank you. I was trying to figure out which one it is. So that one, the do da 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 da, is done in the mountains here in Quebec near Moronites in the wintertime. Um, so yep, that's the one. What else do we have? Let me check it out here. Vianney 14165 upper sideband, strong signal. Let's check it out. We're just gonna check the Pirate 6866. Very strong Pirate also 6866. Very very strong here. Let's try it on the SDR. Yeah, that one is good on my MLE 30. So definitely strong Pirate at 6866 upper sideband. So rotten animal yellow thing on the drive is a meter stick. It's a little longer than a yard. Wow. Francis Moore, another fascinating and informative broadcast. Thank you so much, Francis. Strong Morse on code on 8640 upper sideband. I'm just going to try it in case. 8640. Nothing here, but you're on the West Coast, so you're probably hearing something I don't hear up to here. 14165. Let's check it out. Hotel India 8. Matt says, I wonder if the police recorded the album at Le Studio. That was a popular place for big bands to record in the early 80s and would explain why they were in Quebec. Yes, they did. I know for a fact that they did record it here. Yes, and it was a very, very. I always wondered what happened after that because that was such a popular place for so many artists. They would spend time here in Quebec, and they would go at Le Studio. Yep, it was like one of the top. I've always wondered if it was maybe because they didn't make it updated or something. Because I always wondered because that was back then it was known as one of the top level studios in the world, and so many artists came here and recorded there. It's pretty crazy. Does Radio Exterior de España do paper QSLs? I know they do QSL, but I'm not sure if it's an EQSL or a paper QSL. But I know that they do QSL now. It's been bought and rehabbed. Yeah. I was always wondered if they just, maybe let it go and it wasn't up to par with what other new studios were coming up with. And modern day, you can almost, and a lot of artists do now, you can almost do top quality recordings in your own home today. It's not like, back then. It's cool though. It was cool to know that, artists would come here. And because back then that was the thing, a lot of them would like rent a place there, would go to the studio. Often I'd hear when, these artists would come to Montreal and have a blast in town. I had a my one of my friends' uncle owned a bar, a very very popular bar here on Saint Denis Street, and artists were known to go there all the time. And actually, when Pink Floyd came to Montreal in '87, my friend had called me on the phone to tell me that after the show at the Olympic Stadium, they had reserved a spot in the bar to be there. And I know that a lot of artists would go there. It was a very very popular spot for most artists when they would come here. They'd after a show they'd go and have a few beers there and stuff like that. Um, and it was a great time. It's like, this is cool. They're all coming here. It's kind of nice to know that all of these people came over here. There was something about the studio. There was something here that attracted them. I know a lot of bands also said that what they enjoyed a lot um, back then also is they enjoyed that not only was it a beautiful place to be, but they actually enjoyed being even in the city of Montreal. They said it was such a wonderful city to be in back in the day, and I believe a lot of artists today are still fond of Montreal for all sorts of reasons. There's many artists that actually got their first break on Montreal radio, and that expanded through the rest of Canada and the US. So it's pretty cool. Caught on fire. Wow. Okay. You can record it at home, but it's the feel of being around with other players. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These days, a microphone, a laptop running Pro Tools is a studio. Yeah, yeah. You could do a good studio in your basement and have all the musicians there. Radio Kid Pirate 6866 has a good signal in Nova, but sounds like he is overdriving the modulation. What is Crafter's Kitchen? Grew up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. The next town over is Carlisle, and the Cars practiced in the barn there in the 70s. Wow. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Shortwave Archive. Iceland had a station called Riki Sudvarpid that was not an official international broadcaster. It was for the Icelandic speaking population on international bands. And they were often on weird frequencies. I got a QSL card from them here back in the day. They were on weird frequencies in the day. And so Riki Sudfarpid, remember that. Stopped broadcasting sometime in the 90s, I guess. They weren't that difficult to hear, actually, here on the East Coast in Montreal. But yep, they had an international broadcast. There was an international shortwave station out of Greenland at some point. There was a lot of these things from a lot of countries back in the day. Rex, nice to have you here. Neither 6 megahertz pirate station heard in Central Texas on my FTDX10 hooked to a Mosley beam. Nice to have you here, KC5AGO. So hey guys, we've been on for 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I will stop it here because I turned off the air conditioning. It's starting to get hot and humid and muggy, and I want to start things over. And I'm gonna go do my supper. I've got some pasta for supper, and I will I have some things to do also. I'll also have a few things to do tonight for radio, so I'll be checking that out for sure. Joey Jojo, direction of a wire doesn't matter. It becomes directional mostly when it's extremely long, more in the beverage side. But when it's just 50 or 100 feet, doesn't matter what direction. You usually want to make sure that um, it's mostly positioned for less noise. That's what you want. Correct me if wrong. So shortwave, the intrigue is to explore stations. Well, it's a means because shortwave radio used to have a lot of international broadcasters targeting North America. We would listen to the world. We still listen to the world, but it's different today. There's all sorts of other things, but there are still some stations that you can listen to from different parts of the world. Radio Romania, Radio Slovakia, Radio Prague. You've got several shows from WRMI, Spain. You got I listen to BBC World Service at night. I listen to Radio New Zealand also. So it's nice. And of course, if you add the international, you add amateur radio. Well, I can talk to the world pretty much through amateur radio also. So lots of stuff. So take care, guys. It was fun to be here. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll be back next Saturday on the Radio Amateurs of Canada Day contest. So we're going to be checking out if we can spot some of those exotic stations in the Nunavut area, like, Iqaluit, or, maybe in Whitehorse, and so on. And maybe even try to find every province on the air with the RAC stations. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. We'll be back next week, 20 hours Universal Time, same channel. Take care, everyone. Love you all. Stay safe.